Thank you for clicking this video. My name is Princeps Polycap, and this will be an intro to Princeps Polycap and the Polygon 86 ecosystem. Now, if it's your first time here, if you're watching this and you don't know who I am, you somehow find yourself in this video, I'm gonna attempt to explain, and this will be part of a video series, right? So there'll be about 6 videos in this playlist, and they will explore a man who, when he was about 16, had an idea of terraforming the Sahara Desert because we need a new place for people to live and we need to reverse global warming. And the best thing that that kid could think about was how do we plant more trees in a desert to suck CO2 from the atmosphere, reversing global warming, and also providing a new place for the next billions of people who are going to be born to live. And it is April 17th, 2025. 10 years ago, I graduated. Well, I went into my first freshman year in college. And in the time, from when I was 16 to when I am now, has been trying to grapple with this. How do I even explain this? How do I build towards that future? Oh, yeah, I'm the same guy and kid who, well, I'm not a kid anymore, but I'm the same guy who more or less had this idea of terraforming the desert. And so what I have failed time and time again is to define myself as a brand that is easily consumable by the mass population of people, because nobody really wants to, and nobody gives a fuck about terraforming the desert. Let's be honest. I've learned this the hard way, and there's pockets of people who are really interested in this and interested in ideas about how to move forward into the future. But I have definitely failed at branding myself, at being able to brand the concepts. I think I brand the concepts a lot better, but I didn't know who I was in relations to those concepts. And another thing actually is that I didn't want to be a leader. When I was younger, I think I was about in junior year in high school, which is about like 15. I came across a video by Charlie Chaplin where it's from a movie called The Great Dictator. And that speech starts off by saying, I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I just want to help everyone if possible. Jews, Gentiles, black man, white. We all want to help one another, human beings are like that. And I do stem from that philosophy. I never wanted to lead, much less become an influencer. But the harsh reality is, if I do want to have, it's not really harsh. I think I'm very privileged to have a vision that com- that I can strive towards, that is unique enough, and I have the perspective, I have the charm, the capabilities. I am blessed, far beyond what I even recognize. And I think the fact that I actually get to work on this, work on the ideas that I want, and work on the things that can help other people is a privilege, and I am eternally grateful for it. And part of me never really wanted to be an influencer, but fundamentally, I've come to the realization that to make this work and happen and actually inspire other people, I have to influence, and that means that I need to be an influencer. Now, one of the things is that I don't want to be a shallow influencer, and so what this series of videos will be. This first video will be talking about more or less the multi-layered brand ecosystem that I have to build, and what you're gonna get out of this video, if you're watching 3 minutes into this long intro. Is how does somebody who takes, a large vision, such as terraforming the desert, and break it down into not only branding themselves in relations to those larger visions and those larger concepts, and how to present that to the world. One of the things that I'm really aware of is a distinction between me, the human, making this video, and the brand persona of myself online that you will experience, and the audience, and how the audience, you watching, will perceive it. One of the things that I have more or less had an aversion to is the audience feeling like they own me. And what do I mean by that? Kendrick and Drake kind of, they exemplify what I'm trying to show here. We appreciate Kendrick for his ability to create art and content, more or less, that speaks to a fundamental human experience, right? And we know and understand Kendrick from his art. Juxtaposed to how we know Drake's life. We know so much about it because he puts it out there. And over time, Drake's career and Drake's output became less about the art and more about himself. Thus, it became more that his audience felt like they owned Drake. I don't know if I'm making a point here, like if my point is really landing here, But my point, really, at the core of it, is that I want you to consume the products of my work rather than consuming me, right? So as much as this video will be focused on me, the thing I want you to learn from this, and the thing that I want you to get from not just this video but this series of videos, is courage to dream of a better future, of the most amazing utopian future you can dream. And I will give you me as an example and show you how, from that almost unbelievable future of terraforming the Sahara Desert, automating, the production and distribution of basic needs, building automated systems that can automate business processes, all the way down to the person who actually powers a lot of those ideas and actually champions them, moves them, and works on them daily without anybody really knowing about it, right? If you're watching this video and you're subscribed, it means that you know about me a little bit and you've kind of followed my journey. So sorry to keep you waiting. I had to find myself, and I had not only find myself, to find myself in a easily consumable package. And this series of videos, this playlist, will be about how we go into, like, how I'm gonna go about this, right? Now, we're at the very beginning of this, and as if you're coming back from the future and you're watching this and you're kind of like, how did this guy actually achieve this? This is partly the underpinnings of how we got there. So enough with the 6-minute intro. Let's get started. All right, so I think there was a point I was supposed to make in that last intro. Totally forgot it. Anyways, so this document is, and the series of videos, it's to explain a multi-layered brand ecosystem created by me, yours truly. The ecosystem consists of 4 interconnected brands that progress from personal leadership to practical business solutions to visionary global impact, right? And so fundamentally, I had to start off with myself as a base, right? And who am I? Well, I am Princeps, and I have, I grew up in Kenya. We'll get into it a little bit later. The series of videos kind of build on top of each other. So here, actually, you'll see that, part 1 is the intro. Well, there's the intro video, which you're watching. Hi. Part 1 is then the content strategy, right? Like content strategy, communication. Part 2 is marketing funnel. Part 3 is really about, operational considerations. How do we, build this brand? How do we create content to follow the funnel? How do we put out that content? Part 4 is going to be about implementation tools and templates, right? How do they connect to each other? Part 5 is going to be about, part 5 is going to be about, future evolution, how these brands are going to grow, evolve, and change into different versions. Like, how do we adapt as the brand continues to evolve? One of the reasons I'm making this video is that I wanted somebody to kind of walk me through how I build a brand, right? How do the Alex Moses, or how do people who build amazing big brands go about it? And I maybe never came across it, never studied marketing enough, so I did, kind of learn about how to do this from helping other people and more or less kind of, reasoning through it. So my personal brand is of a visionary founder with an authentic journey. Fundamentally, one of the things is that I kind of mentioned it. There's a difference between authenticity, like me being completely how I am, because by the time you're watching 10 minutes into this video of me just rambling and more or less kind of setting up the stage for this long ass document, this video is probably going to be an hour long. So how about you play it when you're washing dishes or cooking? But it's I don't want to lose myself in making content, in becoming more popular, and I want to stay true to my essence and what I started off with. So personal brand, you get to understand me. You get to understand who's behind this concept. Like how does he think? What is his routine? What is his life? What is the human behind these grandiose ideas that not only do I espouse to work on, but I also continuously develop every single day and make sacrifices for? Part 2 is actually a product brand, right? And so this product is called Poly. I've been working on Poly for quite some time. And Poly is, for all intents and purposes, a product and a platform which allows digital workers to automate business workflows. One of the things is that for me to get to being able to terraform the desert, I have to partner and collaborate with a lot of different businesses and create an ecosystem in which the partners within that build technologies to be able to help us get closer to automating production, distribution, and basic needs, and therefore laying the groundwork to terraforming a desert. And so part of what Poly not only aims to do in the short term is provide value so that I can make money to be able to fund the later stages of this. Think of, I've also used a popular guy, Elon. He started off with PayPal, which was like X, or, Zip, to whatever. He made like 400 million from the sale of PayPal to eBay. And then he used that money to funnel it into SpaceX. And then, the rest is more or less history. He got into Tesla, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I've always been advised that, hey, I should have a product, I should have a platform, I should have something that people can not only use that is valuable, that they can be able to do. So I built Poly. For those who don't know what Poly is, because yeah, I don't presuppose that you're watching this and you know exactly what Poly is. So this is an early beta. This version of it is actually an outdated version that's online. I don't have the other one running in localhost, so stay tuned. But Poly is a platform where I help businesses automate their workflows and processes so they can make more money, make more value, so that we can make more products that actually get us closer to the future where we have automated the production and distribution of basic needs while terraforming the Sahara Desert. So Poly 186 is a vision brand, right? And what I mean by that is Poly 186 brings these ideas together, and I can actually show you Poly 186. I can show you the website, which is on Webflow, because I am not paying. Yeah, I just wasted money over time. But Poly 186 is the brand. I used to work on something called CSAP, deep lore. Anyways, that kind of has these brands that represent building different things. But Poly 186 brings a lot of these things together in terms of an ecosystem of products that can eventually lead to a reality where we've automated the production and distribution of basic needs. At the very beginning of my journey, actually, you'll hear me talk a lot about like, oh, hey, we need to automate the production and distribution of basic needs because that is the right thing to do. Well, no, actually, at the beginning, it was like, oh, hey, we should terraform the Sahara Desert. And then I realized, okay, nobody gives a fuck about the Sahara Desert. Nobody gives a fuck about, Africa and Africans other than Africans themselves, which also, as an African who was born in Kenya, I feel you. And part is that we have to be responsible for ourselves and our future. And me not only existing and championing these ideas and working towards them is supposed to inspire. It's not supposed to. Like, you can be inspired if you want. You don't have to be inspired. But I'm doing this because I do genuinely think that it's the best thing I can do with my life on this plane of reality. So, Poly 6 brings together those ideas, right? So when you think about the brands, the brands, the products, the services, the platforms, these things that I'd have to develop. You can see here it's a Poly 6 platform, Poly 6 subsidiary. So there's these companies that I'd have to develop and build to be able to actually help us, lay the groundwork for automating the production and distribution of basic needs. Because one of the things is actually an incentive alignment, right? And to get people to collaborate on such a large scale of ideas, you have to align very, very complicated incentive structures for different people. So the thing that I thought about with Poly 6 is, what is the best incentive structure to be able to align people in? It is food, basic needs. Everybody needs basic needs, right? And so this kind of section here actually kind of explains it the best. Poly 6 is building the infrastructure for companies to automate basic needs production and distribution. And so Poly, the first brand, the product I showed you here, is supposed to help automating the workflows within those businesses that Poly 186 either works on, builds, to make them efficient. That makes sense. So we'll keep going down here. There's probably more slides. P3 actually stands for Princeps Polycap Productions. And that brand more or less represents the moonshot idea, right, of terraforming the Sahara Desert. And here you can kind of see that my personal brand focuses on me, who I am. When I read leadership here, it kind of gives me like a leadership. I kind of just want to say, hey, here's who I am. Poly is the direct thing that I can do to help businesses to be more efficient. Poly then helps Poly 186 help businesses that I build, or businesses that I partner up within the Poly ecosystem, to be able to get better and more efficient at building the technologies that are needed to automate the production and distribution of basic needs. P3 is that moonshot idea, similar to some guy's idea of going to Mars. I kind of don't think we should go to Mars. I kind of think that we should figure things out here first before we go to Mars. Like, if we're gonna go to a whole other planet and like work on terraforming it and doing all that, why don't we do it here? Like, we have so much here that we need, that we can build on and fix and use, that going to a whole other planet to try to figure that shit out from scratch kind of, to me, seems a bit dumb. And I can't believe in that future. This is to that moonshot future of going to Mars, which I think there's an aspect of it where we just building technology to get there. I think in the short term, terraforming the desert kind of is the halfway point to going to Mars. I'm not saying that we don't want to be a multiplanetary species. I do think that we should be a multiplanetary species, but in being a multiplanetary species, we have to have milestones, and part of that milestone on that journey is solving our social economical issues while also improving the actual living conditions of the planet that we live on, because that's just fucking being thankful for the planet you actually end up being on. But, I digress. So, this is kind of a visual here, kind of showing you, hey, this brand right here kind of focuses on necessity production and distribution. This other brand kind of focuses on digital automation of digital processes within companies, so offering direct business solutions immediately. And then P3 is kind of that like pie in the sky kind of thing that is so far off. And so this kind of also shows you the brand hierarchy, where I start off with my personal brand as me. Who am I? What do I do? And how do I do this, right? You're probably watching this on my YouTube channel. So, hey. So I'll also have like I do have a YouTube channel for Poly, where Poly is, which kind of creates a distinction between me and the thing building that people can consume. My brand, my personal YouTube channel is actually just supposed to be more about explaining to you how I got here, right? How did I go from being some kid in Kenya to being able to basically building, my first company and my second company and my third company, and being able to travel the world. Currently, I'm in Colombia. And so, how did I end up doing that? And could you learn from that? And if you want to kind of live that lifestyle, how can I help you live that lifestyle? So I'm going to give you some information. I'm not really going to I don't have a coaching program, and that's not something that I'm really going to be doing. I just have, anyways. So, building building a brand from personal journey kind of talks about, humble beginnings. I started in Kenya, so, I learned how to program. I actually did work at a factory for a little bit because I read I think it was the Steve Jobs book, and he had worked at HP, and I was like, oh man, it'd be so good to learn about how factories work, because factories are fundamental to production. And so if I need to be able to automate the production of basic needs, I have to kind of understand how do we currently run factories. And so, resiliency. Oh my God, I have lost so much money. I have failed so many times in this vision. Honestly, I would have more success if I was just more shallow and cared about hey, welcome again to another video. Would you like to learn how to get abs like these ones? You can't see it. And don't forget to sign up for my online course about how you can get abs in 30 days. Yeah, some shit like that. Or, some crypto thing to this, and it's more about the necessity of using blockchain and smart contracts, much rather than, hey, here's my meme coin, pump and dump, be an influencer for the sake of just being an influencer. I want to influence for the sake of a better future, and that's really where I kind of, purpose-driven in innovation, right? So I want to do things because they're purpose-driven. The purpose of this is to inspire others. Through authentic leadership, but more or less through just showing you an example, just being like, hey, here's how I do things, here's when I fail. I hope that I have the courage, and honestly, I'm so much of a perfectionist, and I don't want to be seen in the worst light, but I do stress. I do get closer to failure. There's videos on my YouTube channel where they're not perfect, and I always kind of cringe at them, but I leave them there so people can kind of see my progression in character, my progression in understanding and being able to communicate the audience and inspiring entrepreneurs. And so who is this brand for? Poly, who am I aspiring to? Aspiring entrepreneurs, tech professionals, sustainability advocates, those who want to connect with the story of a personal transformation, right? So this kind of goes over the same thing, how by basing especially my personal brand on myself, I can show how I taught myself a lot of these expertise. I learn, I take time to understand a lot of that. Overcoming adversity, right? I think if I don't go to the gym, I know if I don't go to the gym, I get all depressed and I get all overwhelmed with a lot of things that I have to do. I do stress a lot. I work a lot more than people can actually, if you're subscribed to this and you've known me for a while, you know how much I work. And it's just because I have so much to learn. There's a gap between what I know and what I need to know to achieve my goals. That is ignorance debt. That's actually a concept from Alex Hormozi, where he talks about the difference between what you know and what you need to know to achieve your goals. That gap is a gap called ignorance debt, right? It's a debt of the ignorance that you have of what you don't know to help you get to where you need to go. Purpose-driven technology. I love technology. I think technology is a force multiplier. I think that, AI agents, digital workers can allow me to have more of an impact. And we'll get into that when I get into Poly and the brand below. Whew. Authentic leadership. So it's, I don't as I said, I don't want to rule or conquer anyone, but I think fundamentally just by being able to have something so amazing, what I would, in a biased perspective, call amazing, I think there's an aspect of it which it necessitates me being a leader, right? And as much as I might run away from being a leader or run away from, I think it's more of the anxiety and the responsibility of leading others and taking others' lives into my own hands. I have to be better at that. I have to be not comfortable with the concept of being a leader, but understand that to influence means to lead people into a better future because I have to influence to be able to then lead those people into a better future. No one truly will be influenced if they don't think you're a leader in what you do. And more or less, the last one is kind of global solutions that kind of lead to impactful brands. So a lot of what I'm really going here is the brand architecture and kind of the reasoning behind this. In the later videos, I'll actually break down a lot more the marketing strategy, how we go about, like making videos, content, whatever. Just watch the video in the playlist. These will be released over time. So the next brand, Poly. Born from Princeps's first-hand understanding of manual work, Poly creates digital workers that can automate tedious business processes, freeing human potential for higher impact activities. We began as an agency, and what began as an agency has evolved into a platform that powers sustainable business transformation, right? So, we are in 2025, the year of the agents, or so they say. And during this year and during this time, a lot is being spoken about how we can automate manual work. So understanding manual work, developing digital workers to be able to automate that, automating business processes. And so this is actually how I make my money. This I afford a place like this. Here, this is how I travel. Initially, it was an agency, and I realized that more businesses need the same similar automations. Also, there's a whole movement about AI automation agencies, AAA or AAA. Liam is a really big person who talks about these things. And so one of the things is that, automated, just to be able to build a business that can help other people automate. What I wanted to build is the technology and the infrastructure for businesses to be able to build those automations on top of without having to know or hire automation engineers because small businesses don't have the money and automations engineers can be quite expensive. I can speak first, from first-hand experience. And so this is more or less kind of how the brand cycle kind of goes, in which, Poly's business transformation cycle, right? Where we automate processes, free human potential, and this is more or less kind of marketing, but more or less what we're doing is kind of looking at processes in a business, defining how we can automate the relationship between, different data points, different platforms in that business uses, and putting thinking systems and the ability for those systems to have the capability to use tools and to engage and move that data and transform that data towards helping that business achieve its KPIs and OKRs. Hopefully that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, obviously do the you things and, comment below and I or somebody else will comment. So the purpose to provide practical immediate solutions for businesses focusing on sustainability, right? Enabling them to scale their impact without proportionally scaling their team, right? And this I can use in Poly 186 later to help me build a bunch of other businesses, right? So the audience is focused businesses, sustainability focused businesses generating $50,000 per month, operating leaders, sustainability officers, and digital transformation teams. I think one of the other parts of this audience is, especially for the Poly and Agency of Poly brand, is entrepreneurs who want to build a AI automation agency. I don't know why they say AI automation, but I guess it's because you can have an automation agency, but now that we have AI, it leads us to be able to having those automations be powered and reinforced and more or less kind of, made to work using AI, right, and LLMs. And so that's kind of part of what I'd add to the audience there. Key messaging themes. These are the themes that I kind of have to kind of hit on with this brand for it to actually make sense. So this is a really good graphic here that kind of shows the business, the strategic business strategy and how, more or less this brand is going to communicate to businesses, to its audience, how we go about building an automation agency, automation agency. Oh my God, I'll just call it AAA for now. Well, AAA, like no, not AAA, because there's already something called AAA. Whatever. The Americans who were watching this would probably get them. Tangible ROI, so this is kind of just what this brand not only represents and offers. And so the other cool thing about this is that it compounds, because you can remember up here that, personal brand, platform brand, the platform will actually, which the platform is Poly and the agency of Poly is a subset, is the company or the brand around that, Poly is a platform that you can use to build automations for your business or for your clients, right? So it's a do-it-yourself model. But the agency of Poly is kind of us going into businesses and actually helping them automate different business processes. So it's a do it for you service. Agency of Poly thus is a bit more expensive because I have to go into a business, understand the business, and actually help them automate different parts of their business. And then Poly is a do-it-yourself service where you pay a subscription typically to other platforms to build automations that then you can deploy into other businesses. So let's get into the third brand here. So the third brand is Poly 186. Now, if you've known me for a while, you know the word Poly 186. I literally have it tattooed on my hand. I'll show you guys next time, maybe if I wear a short sleeve shirt. But Poly 186 represents the broader mission to create systems that automate the production and distribution of basic, I don't say necessities because it's just such a long word, but basic needs globally. It serves as a bridge between immediate business solutions and the ultimate moonshot vision, right? Because the moonshot vision is more or less an idealized concept of reality. It's not a myth, but it's a prophecy. No, that would make me a prophet. That would make me a prophet. And yeah, that gives me culty vibes, so I definitely don't want that. But terraforming the desert is something I deeply care about, and I deeply think and believe in that is the way we have to be able to solve a lot of the problems we have by doing these things. So Poly 186 lives between the present reality of Agency of Poly and Poly with the far future of this vision being achieved of terraforming the desert. It bridges the gap into a practical sense, right? So what do I mean by practical sense? Transforming global needs through automation and sustainability. I'll always replace necessities with needs because needs sounds better, simpler, whatever. Automation systems. So Poly 6 represents the technological infrastructure designed to streamline production processes. And then, it's kind of like triangle. It's not the Illuminati triangle. Sadly, I'm not part of that club. Or, well, I guess I'm glad that I'm not part of that club. Distribution focuses on the efficient delivery of needs to communities worldwide. Sustainable practices emphasize environmental friendly methods to ensure long-term viability. One of the things Poly 6 actually wants to do, and why I want to build it, is so that we can have grassroots movements. As I said, I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I just want to provide you the technology, the tools, the concepts, the philosophy, the socio-economical framework that I've kind of, defined, designed, researched over the years to be able to kind of help us have grassroots movements, to help you be able to actually make grassroots movements locally that can help your local governments, your local policymakers, your local reality to make decisions to improve the living conditions by being able to align social forces and environmental factors towards being able to evolve your local reality towards being what you'd want it to be. There's a disconnect between what the populace wants and what the ruling class wants, right? And I'm not going to get into Marxism here, but, there's also class warfare, and there's also kind of just concepts about, the people want one thing, but the systems that they are part of, the systems that, they've given their, what is it? I felt like my thoughts were not coming from the ground all the way to my head. But what I was really trying to say in that last section was about legitimacy, and more or less that people, based on the social contracts that we have, such as the Constitution, do give political representatives their agency, their sense of, hey, go represent us in the larger populist conversation about what kind of reality we want to live in. And I forgot I was getting to that, but my point is that Poly 186 actually lives in between the practical aspects of what we need to do right now to be able to improve businesses and the ability for us to produce, and automating that and making that more efficient, with the moonshot idea that, which I'm personally more moving towards, that we need to be able to figure out global warming and where to put the next billion people. I don't think it's on the next planet or another planet. I think it's more or less, hey, let's just figure out what's going on with this one, solve ourselves, because reality is an expression of what we are internally before we think about going somewhere else and bringing our baggage with us, which is kind of what I really think this is about. So that's what Poly 186 is for. So we're going to actually move into the moonshot idea, right? And if you've known me for, 10 plus years, you know that I deeply think that we should, or that my purpose in life is more or less to terraform the Sahara Desert. So, one of the things is to be able to, as I kind of mentioned, and I keep mentioning, is that transforming deserts into habitats through visionary innovation, right? And part of it is that plants and trees are probably the best carbon capture device ever. It is natural. It also helps cool the planet, but also reverses global warming. But also, if we plant not just trees, but also, food, they do sequester carbon into the ground. And so when I think about how do I go about building a multifaceted approach towards building a better future, P3 really stands at the intersection of all the things that I really want to do. It is the combination of me figuring out how to run businesses more efficiently, automating different processes in businesses, to being able to do that with multiple businesses and multiple partners. In a different video, actually, in playlist, we will talk about partners and how Polygon 6 will attract partners, how Polygon 6 will build a subsidiaries and be a conglomerate of different decentralized organizations, and how those can actually all come together towards compounding and having this emergent property of us working towards terraforming the desert, learning how to do that, growing more plants. And let me be clear here, when I say terraforming the desert, a very important distinction is not that I'm gonna go to the Sahara Desert, amass an army, and conquer people and force this reality upon them. You can choose to be part of this, and you don't necessarily also have to be in the desert to be able to be more efficient at being able to grow plants, trees, and actually improving the living conditions of the reality that you live in. It is just a shorthand, and it's also just a moonshot vision, similar to taking people to Mars, that would force us to develop the technologies to be able to improve the production of more or less plants and the Polygon 6 kind of does this, is the production of food, but it was also the 3D printing of infrastructure, and also the bringing of both those things together towards also finding ways to generate energy in a sustainable way. So P3 as a brand becomes me exploring the ideas of how different places have terraformed their deserts. A good example of this is actually China. China has a lot of ways that they have worked towards changing the Gobi Desert or parts of the Gobi Desert to planting trees. There's actually an old lady who had been doing it for about 20 years. So this brand will explore those technologies, will explore those parts of people doing that stuff, right? Because part of it, we're talking about branding here. We're talking about what do these brands represent? What do they focus on, and how do they communicate? And how does what they communicate compound into people realizing, we can define the future we want to live in, and here's how this guy has defined the future he wants to live in, and here's how he's working towards it, and here's what he's accomplished in the journey of working towards it. Here's what he's learned. Maybe you can use his learnings to be able to actually help yourself be able to define the future you want locally in your current local reality. I'm in Colombia right now, but let's say I was in the United States, I was in Kenya. I'd be able to watch these videos and kind of piece together, okay, this guy is kind of working towards this. I think that if I do this, he can connect to that thing he's doing, or I can use that thing he's building to be able to help me achieve these things locally. Because there's a lot of people who are figuring a lot of different ways to terraform the desert, or improving the conditions, or 3D printing houses, and how can we make that more sustainable for other people to do. And so the P3 brand is meant to demonstrate the potential of radical environmental transformation through ambitious long-term thinking and technological innovation. There's a lot of people who have done a lot of research about how to be able to terraform this. I do have friends on Instagram. Shout out to you if you're watching this on Instagram, which you're probably not, but if you probably are, shout out to you if you're watching this on Instagram. But there's a lot of people, because I do stand for this, and my closest friends do know me for this, do tag me in videos and share videos with me of people who are actively working towards terraforming the desert. So I'm not saying that I will do terraforming the desert. I'm saying that I want to build a brand that champions, shares, and shows people that it is possible, that it's not a illusion, it's not a fiction. It's not something that, is impossible. And so I'm going to kind of keep going down here a little bit. So Princeps Polycap Productions, this kind of shows all those things, from terraforming ambitions, terraforming barren landscapes into habitable environments, habitat creation, building new ecosystem of diverse species to thrive. Wait, diverse species? Species to thrive? I guess we're part of a species. Planetary scale solutions. When we talk as a white paper I wrote where I talked about global solutions, local implementation, right? So we as a species, we as humans, right? I wouldn't necessarily say that this is only Afrocentric as much as it says Afrofuturism right there. I am an African. And one of the things is that I don't think Africans have had a united vision of what their collective future should look like. I think a lot of it has always been tied to the past and the history as we have been told about when we were slaves, when we were colonized, and when we were not shit. Oh, remember when they said that we didn't build the pyramids? We still, there's people who still believe that. And ironically, if we as Africans, and I kind of feel like if I keep, debating about this whole, oh, they did this to us, they did that to us, oh, we're gonna wait for some, white person to come from the sky in a spaceship to come back and save us so that we can go to another afterlife, so that in that afterlife we can clap for this deity forever. That leaves us not in a position where we can define what our future looks like. So as much as I am deeply rooted in being the fact that I am Black, African, I also do realize that these are humanist ideas, that fundamentally automating the production and distribution of basic needs is a humanist thing. It is not a thing about, oh, this guy from this background built it. It's about us as a collective saying, we want to live in a better future. I'm still in my 20s. Not too long. I still have like a couple more years, but fundamentally it's about what kind of future do we want to live in, right? And defining that future and working towards it regardless of where we're from. And so the fact that I do want part of this to be Afrocentric, the Sahara Desert, for example, that's a personal thing. It doesn't necessarily mean we can't apply the same technologies, not only not in deserts, but in other places in the world. It is just so that I, as an African Black person, can give other African Black people something that they can believe in, right? United concept of a vision of a future that allows us to be more unified, to align more incentives towards a grander vision of our future. If we can even presuppose that Africans could have built great civilizations, that could have built pyramids, or Mali with Timbuktu, and a lot of other ones that I'm not going to go into right now, if we can presuppose that Africans have built great civilizations in the past, there's no reason that we can't build a better one in the future. And actually, a stronger, better Africa is better for everybody. There's a really good Kutzkazat video where he talks about how, Africa being better actually helps everybody, because if Africa doesn't have political turmoil, it can build its infrastructure, which means that we can take a lot of those resources and sell them to the rest of the world, helping the rest of the world be better. We have a lot of resources, and we can not only benefit from the extraction of those resources, using it to improve our societies in Africa, but we can help other societies improve, as they have been doing for hundreds of years, exploiting us. So, there's an aspect of this which is kind of like, hey, I'm not here to debate, about the past. You can study the past, you can study history. We study history to understand it, not to repeat it. But if we're too caught up in how things used to be, we won't understand, build, realize, collectively agree on how things should be, or how we should work on things becoming, right? And so, reverse global change, climate change, okay. So succinctly to put it, what is the value proposition of each of these brands, right? And I think when you're thinking about, hey, this is the vision of the future I really want, you want to kind of understand, what is the value proposition, A, to the audience, to the people who are watching it, which is why I kind of started phrasing that this video, as much as it is about me and the vision that I want to create, you can kind of see how I'm breaking down that larger vision, starting off with me as a person, then what me as a person can produce economically, can build using my ability to program, to write words that turn into things, and how do those words that turn into, software and agents and AI that can be able to then use and help other businesses, how do those businesses function in the larger world towards helping us automate the production and distribution of basic needs. So I'm going to actually read right here from the value proposition, right? Princeps Polycap, yours truly, connect with a self-taught innovator who rose from factory floors. They're not factory floors in Kenya, that's a lie. They're actually factory floors in Minnesota. I was born in Kenya. This was a script that I did have AI write. But, you can see here that in some places it kind of fucked up. But I also left it in so that I can have this bit, so hey. Anyways, how do I go from being born in Kenya to working in a factory in Minnesota to creating technologies that can solve real-world problems while building towards a better future for? That is the value proposition of me as a person, my personal journey in towards achieving and accomplishing this larger, grandiose vision that isn't about me actually having power and more money. That could be a consequence of this larger vision that I'm working towards, but it's not what drives me. I actually don't want to be a leader or didn't want to be an influencer. And so, but out of just the nature of things, that's what I have to do. So the next value proposition is Poly and the agency of Poly, the platform, right? Digital workers that can automate critical workflows for sustainability focused businesses. Now, I kind of want to make a caveat here. I mean, we're 40 minutes deep into this video, so I've probably lost most of the audience who typically are, short span brain people. But for sustainability focused businesses, yes, we do have a discount for those people and the people who run those businesses. But our automation platform can be used for not just sustainability businesses. Actually, most of the businesses who I work with currently don't have anything to do with sustainability. Most people who actually I work with have no idea about this aspect of my character. They just know that guy is articulate, seems a bit smart, and works on some interesting things. He might be a bit quirky, but they don't understand why. And so Poly is a platform that helps automate critical workflows of businesses. Because, if we kind of think about society is made up of organizations and, individuals, right? And individuals and organizations working together kind of build this society on top of that, right? There's a really good graphic in like the white paper I wrote in 2021. But more or less, so if we want to help people become better and more integrated and work towards a better future, I personally represent that. And I then, by representing that concept, show you an example of how you as a person can improve yourself using technology to be better, right? And then on the other hand, I can show you also how to build businesses that can be able to have a deeper meaning to them, how to articulate that meaning, and how to move forward into the future with working on a business that you build, working on a business that you build that can help other people be able to make more money more sustainably and help them achieve more of their goals, which also allows you to make money to be sustainable, to be able to travel and actually experience more of the world. Because partly is that the more people who travel, the better off we are. So, Poly, an agency of Poly, is more about allowing you, basically automating business process. Let me plug in my laptop before it dies. All right, so let's get into Poly 186. So Poly 186 is about building the infrastructure and the systems needed to ensure basic needs and necessities that are accessible through smart automation and sustainable practices, addressing the root cause of global inequality. You see, that's actually why this is important. I started off with myself, the platform I'm building that other people can be able to use. Then it's about, hey, let's automate the basic needs. And then on top of that, then I kind of have this, Afrofuturism, this whole perspective about terraforming the Sahara Desert, right? So I am a humanist fundamentally, right? But as a humanist, I also do juxtapose that reality of me being a humanist with a fundamental truth of the history and the narrative structure and the zeitgeist that I exist within. When people see me first, the thing that they see, especially in the United States, is here is Black man, right? And is he a rapper? Does he play sports? What does he do to entertain us? I'm far from that. And it's also probably why a lot of my videos are not entertainment videos. You can go somewhere else for that. 6 is a brand. The value proposition is like, hey, actually building the infrastructure, right? So Poly 6, as much as it is a brand that partners up and builds its own businesses, those businesses are built and ran by digital workers and agents that I build on the Poly platform. So it builds on top of what I'm actively building right now, while also allowing other people to partner up in within that brand, that company, to build other subsidiaries, and each of those subsidiaries have other partners that help it actually be able to achieve its goals, right? So if I kind of go here and I kind of show you like, hey, here's a graphic that shows, the Poly vision, because my last name is Polycap, and so Poly is in many, and the vision for many, whatever, you get the joke. And you also Poly because many digital workers, many caps, many hats that do many things. Anyways, it's alliteration, and yeah, shout out to my mom for actually naming me Polycap. So let's end this with the moonshot. So what is the value proposition of P3, of Afrofuturism, of terraforming the desert? Now, Princeps Polycap Production of P3 more or less brings all the last layers together, but it is something that I think it is deeply rooted in who I am, where I'm from, and how where I'm from needs to have a united vision, a united front, a united perspective, a united, I don't know, united, I don't know. We need to unite around a specific way of looking at the future and the future we hold in how we want to move into that future, right? And P3 kind of represents that. Here we kind of go into brand personality traits, right? So what are the personality traits of each brand, right? Part of it is that I want to, be able to start thinking with authenticity. I want to be myself. I don't want to be in a certain way because I have to be that way to gain more followers. To there's an aspect of which I have to juxtapose who I am, my ideals as a person, versus also needing to influence people because I, for a very long time, I've not made videos, nor have I taken time to brand myself because I feel like that would put me in a box, right? But that has stopped me from actually having reach and having more people hear about this, right? So there's an aspect of which I need to be authentic. I am innovative, just sheer. I don't think that's a aspect of myself that I have to pick and choose. Similar to whether I want to be more publicized, more in the public eye. I think innovation and just kind of building, futuristic, innovative things is just how I am. So I don't really have to be that. I just am impactful, right? So one of the things I always want to do is do things that impact other people in a grand scale, in a positive way, right? Forward thinking. I'm obviously a futurist. I am not a conservative in any way. I guess I'm a conservative in some aspects, but mostly I am a futurist. I am more about progression and so I'd be more of a progressive in that way. Hence, forward thinking, purpose driven, right? I think that most of the things that we do should have purpose. I do think that life is random. Random things do happen in life, but I think that a purpose driven life, which is a book my mom always would tell me to read, is about how can I live my life with purpose, either in service of others, in service of the greater good. And I think that's something that we may have lost over time in the way that we have become a me kind of reality in society, where it's all about me as a person, you as a person, and all that kind of stuff. So distinctive traits by brand, obviously me, I want to be relatable. I want to be resilient, right? Because I've been working on this for more than 10 years. I want to be inspiring, I want to be transparent, and I want to be determined. Let you figure that out for yourself, whether I've been that in this video. Now, for the agency of Poly, I want it to be practical, efficient, reliable, solutions-oriented, and empowering. Right? For Poly 6, it's definitely a visionary aspect of it, but there is an aspect of it where it's systematic, right? It's about building systems and having those systems actually kind of connect in a way that leads to this emergent property that you can then see and experience. Now, for P3, it's about being bold, ambitious, revolutionary, and pioneering, and far-sighted, right? So it's much more about, hey, let's look far into the future 10 years from now. And that's really at the end of it. So I will just kind of say, this first video is an intro of a long series of videos, right? Not a long series of videos. This is almost going to be an hour long here. So I'll kind of wrap things up and kind of just show you the next video. So this next video is going to go into content strategy, tone, all that kind of stuff, right? So, how do I go from beginnings in Kenya, to factory work? I'll probably change that in the next one. But it's, how is my journey and how did I get to this next place, right? This will talk about the content strategy. What kind of content am I going to create? What is the voice characteristics, the grammar, the syntax? Really, this playlist is about how do I think about this large thing I need to do, right? But how do I, as a simple human who must go to the gym, wake up, leave, code, make money, travel, I have human needs. This is what I call it. There's a tension, right, between the highest ideals that I can espouse to versus the mundanity of humanity, of being a human, of existing on this plane of reality. There's an aspect of this in which I think that is really important for me to nail, understand, and share with you, right? We are base humans, right, partly. But there's also the highest ideals of what we individually, as we decide for ourselves, can espouse to, right? I espouse to be a person who's innovative, who can be able to create technology and systems that can help not just myself, but fundamentally everybody else. Because if I was really just going to help myself and build whatever I wanted to do, why wouldn't I build, I'm an AI engineer. I know that I can build an OnlyFans model who can be able to talk to men on Instagram and kind of help them feel a lot better, men who are lonely and men who don't have whatever this is going on for them. And I can understand that, and I can be able to be parasitic on the people who I can build technologies and a brand and be parasitic with people who have lack. Because I can articulate myself very well. I'm charismatic. I can fit the mold of somebody who's high value man. I can gain followers for that. I can sell courses, but I don't think that's something I really enjoy, and nor do not only enjoy, I don't even want to do that, right? And so, what do I want to do? Why am I making this video? I'm making this video so that you can see an intro into how we can build a brand and how I'm going to build a brand to be able to actually help us be able to have impact, to help inspire people, and show that we can build a better future together. And you can learn about how you can take your vision from being in your head, building a brand that communicates that vision to other people, and helping them get there. The reason why actually Poly and this brand is structured like this is also to gain legitimacy. Because fundamentally, there's an aspect of this. If I had come 10 years ago and I just said, oh, hey, well, which I did. Hey, if you actually go back to my earlier videos, you'll see me say, hey, we should terraform the desert. But I hadn't had the experience in life. I hadn't had the professional experience. I didn't have authority. I didn't have a place where I could say, hey, here's who I am and here's why you should listen to me because of look. or look at the things that I'll make with Poly, right? I have things I can show. I have things I can say, oh, this guy isn't just going to say an idea. As much as I have been talking about an idea, the same idea for fucking 10 years, I also have been doing things to back that up. An example of that is actually Polyverse. So for those who don't know, the actual screenshot in the background, it's not a screenshot. The image in the background is actually of a brand called Polyverse. And Polyverse is part of the Poly 186 ecosystem. If you actually scroll down here, I think you may see Polyverse somewhere. Polyverse! Yeah, Polyverse. So this is a digital world I was making that could bring people around the world to be able to have a hyper-realistic digital universe that allows users to build, simulate, and demo intellectual properties, platforms, products, and services. And these products and services will be used to address complex social and economic problems and contribute to the creation of a utopian post-scarcity reality. Woo! With features such as Poly City or Virtual City where users can be... Long story short, the Polyverse is this like Unreal Engine 5 thing that I built, which people can meet in, but I didn't deploy it because I ran out of money, A, because I didn't understand simple business concepts, and also I didn't have a brand that I myself could be able to galvanize people towards, right? And so Poly, the reason I actually built the brand Poly is because I can do it by myself on my own without really having to. The Polyverse is an example of something that I've worked on for 10 years where I can now say, hey, look at this thing that I have done that is still saved actually somewhere, but it actually does show that I did put a lot of time and effort into making this vision work. Why did it fail? It didn't have a branding. I was bootstrapping it, and oh, here's some pictures so you can actually see that it's a thing. Oh yeah, look, we have some, moon stuff. This is actually a lot more like videos. I'll show you my favorite image actually from this. Where is it? This one. I think this one is my favorite one. Is there another one? Yeah, so there was also, like, this is a long-ass video about this. How many images? Okay, whatever. My point is that the next videos will be about how do I create content about the wide spanning of things like this Easter egg. You didn't even know that this was a thing. I paid about more than $10,000 to have, like, an animator. Shout out to Paco. Paco, if you're watching this, thank you so much for working on this. I know that it's taken me a while to actually be able to get to a point where we can start using some of these things. We're not still yet ready to use Poly or the Polyverse. I have a lot more to do, but I wanted to share our work together, and so that other people can see that we've been working on this. I actually think we worked on this in 2021, 2022, so it's 2025. So I'm showing you work that I did about 3 years ago. Holy fuck. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. The next video is more or less going to be about what is the content strategy for me to be able to produce more content, to be able to actually help each of these, it's going to be a content strategy for each of those brands, which means that you're going to be seeing a whole lot of me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do that YouTuber thing, comment below, or don't do any of that. Don't do any of that if it's just for the sake of doing it. Do it because you want this to be a future and you want to kind of see me do this. Hold me accountable. I am terrible at making videos consistently. I'm going to try to get better. I think I was just terrible at making videos consistently because I didn't understand like what is the framework, right? In my YouTube channel, this video is about the Polyverse, this video is about Poly, this video is about everything in between those. And fundamentally, I feel like this gives me a better structure. So we'll, in later videos, talk about how do I make videos every single day of the week for which brands to focus on what. It's going to be a lot of work because I still have to do poly, still have to do client work to afford this and not be homeless, and also to still produce value economically to then show you and share experiences with you about where I'm going. Don't forget to be awesome, stay safe, be cool. Are we going to make it before? We're going to make it before it's an hour. So, yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Ciao. Wait.